welcome to this panel. Thank you, Biljana, Sasha, for inviting us to this amazing event. As the introductory said, my name is Petar Mitrovic, and I'm really pleased to see you all here. And we will start immediately because we don't have too much time. Although I really don't like using buzzwords, last year was truly something of a golden era for renewable energy in Europe. Europe's seen amazing numbers, 62 gigawatts of new solar power plants on grid, 16 gigawatts of new wind farms, and the private PPA market surpassing the record set in 2023. Despite these record-breaking numbers, it's still not enough. Not enough for the European Union to keep on track with their energy and climate targets for 2030, let alone becoming carbon neutral continent by 2050. The situation in the Balkans is even more challenging than in Europe. The region has been generally lagging behind Europe for numerous reasons, and apart from a couple of exemptions, have not witnessed sincere and genuine success stories last year and years before. The barriers towards keeping up the pace or increasing the pace are pretty common and well known for years already. They include political uncertainty, don't kill me, due to shift in policy, retroactive shifts in policies, and sometimes delayed responses to macroeconomic developments, chronic underdevelopment in the grid infrastructure that is critical for integration of renewables into the system, development bottlenecks, burdensome, time-consuming permitting procedures, and of course, high cost of capital. On top of that, spot markets remain volatile, coupled with limited interest of large European off-takers in this region, and again, limited CFD quotas. This really gives headaches to investors when they are coming up with their off-take strategies. And a lot of efforts to persuade the bankers and the lenders to show that these strategies would be able to service the debt. And considering that the capital shies away from the risk, it is not that surprising that we have not been witnessing more success stories. But here is why. Today at the panel, we are going to discuss what the key stakeholders, the governments, the DFIs, the investors, can do to de-risk these projects. What is their role in the process? Whether the government should focus only and limit itself to creating stable and predictable regulatory framework, or it goes beyond that into investment of the critical infrastructure, maybe even the projects themselves. Why the value of the DFIs goes well beyond providing financing? What is the flavor they are bringing to the projects and to the regulatory systems themselves? And of course, what are the risks that the investors are facing? Can we say now that most of the projects that reach ready to build will be up and running in a couple of years, or the post-development risks are now higher than ever? Which off-take strategies prove to be most resilient? And what are the financing instruments the investors have at disposal nowadays? These are some of the topics we are going to address on this panel. And Madam Minister, I will, of course, start with you. It's been just under the year since you've assumed the office. I can imagine there has been a lot of challenges that you've inherited, but I would like to focus now not on the winter and electricity supplies during winter, but on the green transition. What are the key priorities your ministry is taking in this area?
Thank you very much for the invitation on ESG Summit. The Ministry of Energy, Mining and Mineral Resources was established as first last June, so we are not even a year, and we set up a very, very ambitious agenda. For all investors, it is very important to have a good legislation. So we started with the legislation. we just submitted the new energy law. It's 300 pages, and it was really serious work.
The size matters?
No, no. I'm just saying that it was, it's also the quality. We worked with energy community and EU, so we transposed everything that is needed. It was submitted to the parliament, so in 2 months from now, we will have the new energy law, which when you will read it, you will see that a lot of legal aspects will be solved.
I actually will. I read Macedonian. I don't speak it, but I read it.
Perfect. Apart from that, we are also working on the law for renewables and law for energy efficiency. So these 3 laws are, let's say, crucial. On COP28, it was estimation that for Macedonia, 3 billion euros are needed for the green transition. So
but you are reassessing that, aren't you?
Yes, but still it's a very high amount, and it's not that we don't want the green agenda, we want the green agenda, but as you know, we have coal, and it's really not easy task to find and outsource the baseload energy, because the renewables are not the real answer for that. So in the new law, the storage, battery storage...
Not real answer for baseload.
Yes, okay. Not real answer and not a substitute for the baseload. So we are accessing also the infrastructure. As you said, we have given before preliminary grid access of 9.5 gigawatts, and it's also similar in the whole Balkan region. And in reality, this number, let's say, maximum 2 gigawatts. So we need to have a serious investment in the grid infrastructure, since we all want the green agenda and we want renewables. So we have investors. We have, you will speak, Daniel will speak. We have serious
Both
investors.
of them, actually.
We have, yes, both of them. We want investors, but we want also to make it clear that the reality and what can the system survives. So we don't want to say, yes, we want everything. And so far, even before the summer, our neighbors from Greece announced that the Easter might be critical. And last year, there was also in Croatia, Bosnia, and Montenegro, let's say, a blackout. And we really want bigger cooperation regarding the region and to see what are the key problems. The green transition is reality. And we need to be aware that it requires a lot of financial. We need finance, we need good legislation, and we need also the connection with the neighbors. We are now, next week, announcing the new tender with the connection with Albania. So this will be one milestone, let's say. And we are also thinking about also gas, also maybe hydrogen. So we really have a very ambitious plan, and we are really thankful for all the finance institutions which are helping us, which is EBRD, KfW, and the World Bank. Yeah. So we are really into the green.
But you've also just unlocked the EU funds.
Yes, we
from
were.
The Green Deal.
Yes,
yeah, you're the first
we
ones.
are the first country. We are part of the reform agenda for EU. It's 745 millions, and 145 millions are dedicated to energy and environment, and it's really, really a serious agenda. And since we are a new ministry and we are still not very well equipped with people, we still tried to manage and receive the first 80 million last week.
Well, I think the forum will also address the issues of access to human capital, apart to this financial capital. So good to hear that everybody is facing these difficulties, not only private sector, but the public as well. But you mentioned these grid applications, 9.5. How are you going to handle that? I would assume Macedonian system cannot take it all.
Yeah. Maximum 2. We will.
Maximum 2.
2 gigawatts. Yes, I know. With the new law, this will be.
I'm sure,
solved.
But how?
You know Macedonian, so you can read Macedonian.
Yeah, you know, but you don't want these people paying my partner fees to read. I mean, if you can give a sneak peek.
We will have order, and we will re-evaluate. For example, there are companies which don't even have land and nothing, and they already have preliminary grid, which I think it shouldn't be like this.
Will you maybe follow Serbian
kind of, yes, almost
examples, because
similar.
we were also facing
yes, and we will have a plan for the next year, and then there will be all the potential investors will submit their applications, so we know when we will plan. That we want to plan the grid and the megawatts.
So these guys will probably need to revise their development business plans and budgets.
Yes, but
good to know in advance.
We want a win-win situation.
Yeah,
everybody is satisfied and to be possible.
It's the only way how it can work if it's win-win for all stakeholders. You mentioned the support you are receiving as the government, as the ministry from various DFIs. EBRD, I think, is one of the front runners here from the very beginnings.
Yes,
not only in this reform, but also from the very beginning of the green transition in the Balkans. First with the feed-in tariffs and support in implementation of the feed-in tariffs. Now with the CFDs. So Matteo, in my introduction, I said that in my view, role of DFIs goes well beyond just providing financing. They need to support in more wider manner. So how is EBRD actually supporting? I mean, I know I've been part of these deals and mandates, but for the audience, maybe you can share the experience.
Sure. Thank you for the question, and thank you also to Madam Minister for her comments. Well, let me start by saying, first of all, we are a bank. We invest a lot of our resources in this region, 1.6 billion euro in the Western Balkans over the last few years per year. Last year, 60% of that which is €1 billion, was for projects that contribute to the green transition. And by that, we mean projects which contribute to the competitiveness of these economies and ultimately the economic security of these countries. So the energy sector is clearly at the core of the green economy transition, and it's no surprise the panel composition today is what it is. So energy is core for us as well, and our business model is very much to create the conditions for private sector, for competitive development of industries, and the renewable industry is no exception. So I would say our top policy priority in the region is to continue with this model of auctions, contracts for difference auctions, which we have already extensively supported Albania and Serbia in deploying successfully nearly 2 gigawatt of wind and solar already.
Sorry for interrupting, which is also the part of the EU market design reform. Even the EU itself, like much more developed market, recognized the need for CFDs.
Absolutely.
In order to accelerate the transition.
And I think the good story, the good example that Albania, because Albania actually was the front runner in the region, set, and the demonstration of the good outcome in terms of attracting quality investors, delivering to these economies competitively priced green energy.
If you remember,
absolutely. The first auction, Karavasta, was at levels which are hard to imagine even in today's market.
Maybe Akua's results in these last auctions can compare, considering that it's wind.
Okay, well, it's very, very different.
It's like 53, but 53 for wind. Sorry.
No, so just to say, the track record is very strong, I think, in Albania and Serbia. We are starting the journey right now with North Macedonia and Montenegro, so we certainly hope to accompany these two countries to similar results.
But it's not the same stage, right? Montenegro already has primary legislation.
Sure.
North Macedonia is currently working on the primary legislation.
Which is also something, an area where, of course, we
It just started, actually, right?
We are going to give our contribution in whichever form is going to be useful for the authorities. So setting the regulations first and then helping governments conduct these auctions for us is the priority. Then, of course, we'd love to finance some of the projects coming out of these auctions. We financed the first one in Albania, Karavasta. We financed the first one in Serbia, Pupin. And that's very much our intention to continue.
Maybe some from this round of auctions in Serbia as well?
That's certainly work in progress, and we do hope to support at least one from this last round of auctions. So that's one side of the energy story, but since we're not only talking about renewables here, I also wanted to mention energy efficiency, which is the other core focus for us. The region is still at least twice as energy intensive as the EU when it comes to consumption of energy for each unit of GDP. So there is a lot of waste to cut across production processes throughout the sectors of the economy, but especially in buildings that are really the big energy wasters in the region. So that will also be a big focus for us this year. Buildings, energy efficiency, district heating for countries that have that. You'll see a lot of EBRD in that field as well.
Absolutely. And I mean, you said how you've been supporting. One of the first projects EBRD has been financing in this process was actually almost 10 years ago, and it was CWP's Chibuk 1. CWP developed one of the first and the largest, actually it is still the largest, I think, operational wind farm in Western Balkans, Chibuk 1, that's been developed under the feed-in tariff regime. Now we are talking about CFD regimes and the market. CWP having almost 6 gigawatts in portfolio in various stages, 20 years operation, is one of the, I would say, most experienced developers in this region. So I'm sure that you have great overview of the risks you are facing in different markets. If you could enlighten us, what are these and how you are, I mean, managing these in success stories like Chibuk 1, but also in your upcoming projects, Vetrozelena, Solarina, both of them, by the way, in different rounds won the CFD supported by EBRD.
Yeah, there are a lot of risks, legal, technical, grid, commercial, right? But if you're a developer and if you want to be a pioneer, which is always what we've tried to be, you have to see the opportunities in those risks, right? So we developed the largest wind farm in Serbia. We developed also the largest in Romania 15 years ago, 600 megawatt project. That was
Is
Europe.
this still the largest onshore in Europe?
No, some bastards built a slightly bigger one.
On purpose.
No, I'm joking, but it's the second largest now. But
second largest.
you know, we pioneered corporate PPAs in Australia 10 years ago, part merchant financing, all of that, right? So we've always tried to be a pioneer, and you have to look at risks as opportunities. We've got the lawyers to worry about the risks, we look at the opportunities. And the biggest opportunity that we've got now, if you compare it to 10 years ago when EBRD financed Chibok, is that renewables are cheap, right? Not only that, this region, we have to put it in the overall European context, right? Europe is energy poor. Europe imports 50% of its primary energy. That comes at a cost of 600 billion a year. Huge drag on the economy. And also, it's a huge security issue, right? You're dependent, whether it's Russian piped gas or Saudi oil or American LNG, right? Who knows what that's going to get, tariffed with. So you want to have your own domestic supply, right? So, but the issue in Europe is that the key markets like Germany and Spain are reaching commercial saturation, right? So in Germany last year, 5% of the time you had negative prices, 10% of the time you had close to zero. In Spain, that was 20% of the time, right? So you're not going to get there by building more wind in Germany and more solar in Spain.
Especially solar, yeah.
The cheapest and quickest way to decarbonize, or not decarbonize, but get
neutral.
Yeah, local production of electricity and offset imported hydrocarbons, right? Reduce the dependence, is to connect as many different weather zones. And Southeast Europe, within that context, has a huge opportunity, right? And getting back to the risk versus opportunity, 15 years ago, we needed a feed-in tariff that was substantially higher than the market price of energy. Now, it's actually flipped. So governments, the government of Serbia, the government of Macedonia, Albania, they're going to make money out of our wind energy.
Yeah, absolutely.
Right? Because they're buying it for 50, 60 cents in a market where that profile in a broader European context is going to be worth 100 euros. Right?
If I interrupt you, but I mean, it's maybe a bit off script, but if that is the case, I mean, we've had the second round of auctions in Serbia. Wind farm went as low as 53 euros per megawatt hour for the 70% of the capacity. You are investor. Your project, though solar one, was a bit lower. Why investor would go that low, especially if you've seen that the prices on spot market, which is the reference price in Serbia, for example, average price didn't go lower than 90 euros per megawatt hour for 6-7 months. What is, and of course, all the investors are here for the money. What is driving the investors to offer lower price in CFD?
Cost of renewables, right? The resource is what it is, right? But the two variables are your cost of equipment and your cost of money, right? It's all CapEx. So you trade risk, and this is why this is such a win-win relationship, transaction between, you know, a government that wants to procure a CFD or a off-taker that wants to buy cheap power. It's a win-win because we, as the developer, asset owner, we trade risk for a lower price, right? Because that lowers our cost of money, and we can actually produce at a lower price, right? So this is a typical win-win. And I think, if I can just go back to the original question about the risks and opportunities, I think renewables in our region, and ESG for that matter, but let's not open that.
Yeah, let's not do it now.
We've got a branding problem. We've got a branding problem, right? I think we should stop talking about the green transition and framing it as a decarbonization, cleaning up. Right? We should talk about because the priorities have changed, right? We have to be realistic. The first priority now is security of supply, right? Second priority is being economically competitive, right? And then third priority is probably the climate. But all three are addressed by renewables.
Exactly.
Right? So I think the biggest risk and also the biggest opportunity, and this is how we can empower, you know, politicians and policymakers, is the social license, right? We need, as a community, as an industry, to do a better job getting the message out and getting that social license. Because if you stop the average person on the street here...
Getting back to ESG.
No, if you stop the average person on the street here, right, and you ask them, you know, what do you think about renewables? Yeah. I'm not sure you're gonna get those three kind of major positives, right? So I think, you know, getting back to your original point, I think this is a risk, but also an opportunity.
Yeah, you've expanded perfectly. I mentioned in the intro who are the key players, but there is also one runner-up, and that is the general industry that also needs to support this transition for various reasons. And even a couple of months ago, IFC launched one great initiative, not launched, but led. It's a multi-level initiative, Western Balkans Green Growth Alliance. I think it's end of January, beginning of February, so it's fresh new. What are the mission goals of this initiative, and what tools do you have at your disposal to implement these goals?
Yes, thank you. First, I wanted to say that I'm so happy to be here. It's my first time in Montenegro, and it's great here. And so now we are moving a little bit away from the, let's say, renewable energy, but industries is another area in the society and in the economy that, of course, is carbon heavy and needs to go also through some transition period. And this is exactly what this mission and this flagship initiative is about. We just launched it recently. We are supported, IFC is supported by the governments of Austria and Hungary. And the whole idea is behind this is to help the industries to go through the decarbonization and allow them to make this challenge into opportunity, use it as a kind of, make them more competitive in this coming, because we are still operating in the region of Western Balkans where all the countries aspire, right, to go to the European Union. And there are certain requirements. There is the Green Deal, there is the CBAM, there is all kinds of regulations that they need to comply with. So under this initiative, we are helping the manufacturing companies, including the hard-to-abate sectors like steel and cement, but also retail and tourism, and also agribusiness and service companies. First, from one hand, to increase their knowledge and the toolkit, basically to be able to, through the advisory services and through some events and based on the different sectors and different problems that they are facing in the sectors, to get together and to learn how to address these challenges, and to then equip them that they can assess their kind of emissions kind of situation of where they are, their footprint, improve efficiency, and also think of innovation and how to invest into circular models, the carbon capture and storage, and to make them then more competitive in the long run, and to be able to be, developing in a sustainable way within the EU environment. From the other perspective, we are also helping them. Some of these companies, for example, the manufacturing, they are in the longer term cycle, like 20, 30 years. They require quite substantial investment into the capital expenditures to renew their production cycle and update and innovate. So there are quite substantial investment needs. So we are helping them to prepare bankable projects that they can then attract this required financing, because we always face, I think Matteo would agree that, there is always this saying that there is, problem is the access to finance. I think we think that maybe finance is there, but there is not sufficient number of well-prepared bankable projects. So this, what it tries to do, is to assist these companies and prepare these bankable projects, and then subsequently, hopefully, finance and help the companies grow into the next level.
No, actually, bankability, because we don't have bankability as a language in our languages spoken here in the Balkans, but in 2015, that was one of the most hyped words, bankability. We will discuss later if these things are changing now. But again, you being also the climate anchor for Europe at IFC, what do you see as the critical barriers you mentioned now as well? There is enough capital, there is no enough adequate projects. What do you see as the critical barriers, financial, project-wise, politically-wise, towards those projects actually gaining access?
I think, we discussed a little bit energy, and I think the private sector companies are maybe better positioned to we discuss a little bit risks and the rewards and the financing costs. But I think there are several challenges. I think it's multifaceted. So one thing on the maybe political level or policy side is this regulatory area. I think the keynote speaker, Mr. Kapitanovic, he was talking about how to make this region more joined or more cooperative, while of course joining also the EU. I think this is one of the issues. The regulatory systems may be a bit fragmented, or some more developed than others, and not the same. So I think size does matter, and if we could make the regulatory systems clear and predictable, for example, the permitting also processes, all kinds of procedures, I don't know, ESG standards, even though we said we don't like
Understood,
the word.
but I have to interrupt you. Sorry for this, but you see, in this region, despite we are not part of the EU, we haven't witnessed, when it comes to renewable energy, that many retroactive changes, like we've seen in Spain, like we've seen with windfall taxes, and it's still lower than that. So,
yes. So I was going to that if we, for example, create a bit more compatible, predictable environment, and I think for the private sector companies, if the countries have the clear regulation, also, for example, for the PV project, and there are clear, I don't know, forecasts for the next 10 years, I have these projects, and the private sector, one big company can come, oh, I have you know, in this country, I may have these 3 opportunities, but in the next one, I can have another 5 opportunities. So, you know, it makes sense for them to invest and develop a proper, you know, investment into the countries and then bid and then to have this interest. And once you have these also larger investors, you can then play also with a different type of tools and financial products, for example.
We will come to that later. We need to include Daniel because we are running out of time.
Okay, sorry.
Okay, apparently we will be a little bit late, but I think it will worth it. So Daniel Alcazar is a relative newcomer to the market. I think 2 years ago in Montenegro as the first place, then North Macedonia, and then Serbia. But the first success story actually comes from the other region, from Middle East and North Africa. So how do you, you've been here for almost two years already. How do you compare the experience, especially in terms of risks and the perception of risk? But also how do lessons learned from this MENA region could be helpful in the Western Balkans?
Well, thank you, Petar. So yeah, actually we developed and then we constructed and operated, which is the important part to make them real, 411 megawatts of solar and wind projects in Middle East and North Africa. And there are many lessons learned and also many things that we cannot apply here because they are different. Our current pipeline is 1.2 gigawatts of solar and wind projects between Montenegro, Macedonia, and...
That's only for the Western Balkans, in these 3 countries.
Yeah. So what are the key, if you ask me, 4 or 5 points that are lessons learned or important points for developing these projects and making them real, which at the end is the important part. First of all, I will say local partners. So we are foreigners, we know how to do things in other countries, but we need to have local support for people to tell us how to develop things in these countries. But it's equally important to also work with them and teach them on making them bankable, because many times we have found projects that are ready to build, everybody loves the word ready to build. I mean,
but you've already raised almost 500 million for this portfolio, so it will not be that hard to make this bankable. Huh?
Well, I mean, we have a rocket, but we also do project finance, and we need project finance. So without project finance, we'll not be able to do 2 or 3 times what we want to develop. So we have to work with the local developers to be sure that by the time that we want to really start construction, we don't need to start redoing studies, we don't need to start the development process, and things can happen on time. That's an important point. Second one, Ms. Sani already commented, grid connection. In Middle East and North Africa, it's normally government PPAs. You don't need to be concerned about the grid connection. It's coming automatically. Government has to provide it to you. Here is one of the key points. Moreover, it's that important that many developers and many projects are getting connection agreements no matter what the conditions, they're just signing to get it, add the value of the project, sell it to another company and flip the projects and make
even if it is in very early stage, I mean, significant costs, very early stage in the development, you are happy to take that kind of risk.
Yeah. So again, many people just want to put some money to make an investment, a small investment in getting a connection agreement, and then with that they can multiply by 10 or 15 the projects. So it's an important work, I think, from the governments to try to clean that pool and allow the connection, which is I mean, limited, for the real projects, the one that really wants to develop and construct them. Yeah? Then, third one, I will say project finance. Difference between our previous projects and this one is in our previous countries, it was mainly DFIs. Here, there is still a lot of DFIs interested in project financing, but there's also a lot of commercial banks that are interested in. And I think project finance in this region is not the main issue. I think that is available.
You don't think it's a main issue?
I think there is available project finance. We have received for our projects offers for project financing with more value than what we needed. I mean, it's really a big competition. I think here the important point again is to be sure that some projects wait until the end just to start involving the final equity partner or the project finance, and then again it's maybe too late to start redoing part of the development process. Yeah? And last point, which is very specific of this region, and you touched also before, is the permitting. Yeah, it has to be clear, totally agree, and the more details the better. But one of the things we have seen in this region is that it's very, very detailed, and it's also much longer than what we have seen in some places.
Much longer?
Much longer, yeah. Just to give you an example, in our previous countries, reaching financial close or construction permit, you didn't need to have to select the turbines or the technologies so early in the process, finish all the selection of your suppliers, full detailed designs. after financial close or after construction permit, you can still modify things that allows you to start construction quickly. Here, I mean, you have to provide so much detail and it's so long that if there is any change...
To the TSO and to the authorities?
TSO or, technology is changing. I mean, there are new turbines. If you want to change the turbine, you have to re-permit again. It's not really 2 or 3 months of delay. It's going to be 6 months, 1 year, 1 year and a half.
You are now pointing out one of the biggest headaches of the investors in Serbia nowadays with re-permitting, considering Mitko is smiling.
Exactly. So because of that level of detail that you have to provide and the whole process, many projects that were in the right path, they have to start a re-permitting, and unfortunately that kills the project.
Yeah, again, so you basically moderated back to Madam Minister in that respect. So apparently there are high hopes for these new rules on grid connection. Don't be too harsh, please. But apart from that, you mentioned that previous needed investments were estimated at 3 billion. It's being reassessed now. Do you have the closer number, how much it would take? I mean, it will either be a lot of money. So all the stakeholders led by the government would need to do a lot of work to de-risk these projects. What are you currently doing in that area, and what is expected for the future apart from this regulatory reform? I mean, maybe even Chebren?
Thank you for the question. We are all the time speaking with the private investors, and even when we were bringing the law, we had 15 public discussion, and everyone was heard, and all the comments were noted. Chebren, it was 14 times standard so far. We decided that we already had 4 long sessions, and all the people that built before something in Macedonia were involved, or all our professors and engineers, local ones. And we decided, we as a country, to make a project, what we want and what we need, and then we will ask for investment. We are evaluating the cost. It will be, I think, at least 1 billion. So it is 350, let's say, megawatts, and the dam is 192 meters, so it's really a serious project. So when we will know the cost, because we inherited a really bad budget previously, we will see whether it will be PPP or we will ask for some strategic partners. But we know what we want to do. So this is one of the major things.
You mentioned strategic partnerships.
Yes.
And it was a big deal during the previous government. I think 4 projects, correct me if I'm wrong, but I think 4 energy projects were supposed to be developed and constructed under the auspices of strategic partnership, but in previous government. With your government, yourself, you basically withdrew all of these projects and proposals of the projects from the parliament. What is happening now with these projects?
We had a law for strategic partnership, and the law is it's good written that it needs to have elements for strategic for the country. Since I'm paid from my government and I need to see the interest of my government, we made a team and we read everything in this investment. So one of them was that the government gives away, let's say as a present, 50 million euros to the investors.
Cash or in land?
Cash. Incentive. So the details in all these projects were not very favorable for the government. So we understand what is strategic partner, and we want a strategic partners, and but the conditions really need to be good for us, of course, for the strategic investors, but as I say, win-win situation.
Of course.
So
always
all the details were not very favorable. In one of them, we give a present one of our hydro power plants. So immediately, and then when the next power plant will be built after 8 years, we will get something. So we are for strategic partnership, but for a real one, to have it also us as a government, and the Macedonian people, but also the partners. That's why I withdraw all the,
But you are now reconsidering these as well, if they could be implemented under the new rules, or
Well,
deals?
one of them approached us and we said what is not good. For example, we can't say to one company that you will receive a PPA and not for anyone else. So we want equal treatment for everyone.
Well, it's not actually contrary to the public procurement law, you know.
To have only one PPA, maybe in Serbia, in my country, no. So we want equal treatment for everyone.
Does it mean that we can expect that strategic partnerships might be evolved towards tendering process?
Yes, we are for strategic as long as there is a mutual benefit and win-win. So we said that we can't give a present the land so the land and PPA only for one company. This is a red line.
Okay, thank you very much for that. A couple of our panelists mentioned the project financing and that there is enough capital for project financing, but CWP is now actually, I think, having a project that's close to finish the construction in Romania, though, not in Western Balkans, that has not been financed on project finance basis. What's the reason why you did not take that route? And what was the structure that actually made the project viable? Of course, to the extent it's not confidential.
It was a bit of an accident. We were not intending to build it. We started construction because we wanted to make sure that it got built on time.
Maybe if you can tell, it's the project that's basically the partnership between you, a Bulgarian investor, and Chinese investor, right?
No. It's a 50-50 partnership with Renalfa, which is a Bulgarian-French renewable energy company, active in all over the region, I guess. And we started building. We are.
Sorry, but it is Chinese technology, right?
It's a solar project.
Solar project. Yeah.
Yes, it's Chinese solar panels. Yes, I don't know if any other panels, but
Korean ones.
It's
Korean ones.
But basically,
I'm kidding.
It's a fully merchant project, solar plus storage, and we decided that it's better economically rather than wait to close the financing, just start building, and here we are. The project's built.
So it comes down a little bit to the lengthy procedures of the banks as well, and the requirements they would have in order to close, not only to the regulatory frameworks of the countries.
Yeah, and with solar especially, and with some specific projects, it's actually, you always have this triage between how much you delay the construction, right? It's a market, you want to catch the market, you want to catch the moment. You may have some kind of sunset date on your grid connection, permits, whatever. So it's always a triage. We did that in Australia quite a bit, where you do the bare minimum to kind of get a project built. Bare minimum in terms of offtake, in terms of financing, and then once the project's up and running, you then refinance, you then strike another offtake agreement, and so on. So, it really kind of allows you to move quicker.
Just briefly, how did you secure the financing for that? Was it from the balance sheets, or?
Yeah, it's our equity.
Okay, great. The organizers are just rushing us, so just quickly, Dimitar said merchant projects. Alcazar is relatively new in the region. It is likely that, at least in some of these markets, there will be no CFD quotas available anymore. So you are probably considering private offtake. Can you share the view, what would you actually need in order to have the private offtake in place? Whether it is utility and corporate, unfortunately, in the Western Balkans, we really don't have real corporate PPA yet. Hopefully this will change.
We don't have it all.
Yeah, but you have a couple of utilities in the region, but not corporate.
Yeah, so our primary strategy is not to rely on CFDs or any kind of government offtakes. If it comes and we can get it, perfect, but our priority is private PPAs. Just to give you a real example, so we have just finished our tender for our project in Montenegro and Macedonia. We have reached 250 companies to seek interest, and we have finally obtained 20 concrete interests, call it offers. which maybe sounds small compared with the amount of companies that we touch, but in reality it's 20 bankable offers from, it varies from largest, very large international traders to local corporates. So we're satisfied that we have options, I mean, for these projects. Hopefully in the next months we'll be able to announce either in Montenegro, Macedonia at least, a corporate PPA that we are expecting to be able to close it, yeah? So, and yeah, what we need, I mean, you were saying what we need. I mean, basically it's some support in some cases from maybe also DFIs to help us in. We have some bidders that were very interested, but for example, they are very small. The rating, they don't have rating, or they don't have the possibility, and the requirements from DFI sometimes doesn't allow them to participate. Or even in some cases, we're discussing with very small local corporates that they were interested in maybe partnering together and pooling together, but then in that case, they need some kind of support from maybe governments on kind of sovereign guarantees and things like that. So those kind of help maybe on trying to improve the pipeline of possible options, it will be good.
Thank you very much. We are getting into the red. You wanted to mention something, but very briefly.
I just wanted to mention something to this point.
They're going to kill me. You see them, they're ready to kill me.
You should kill me, sorry. No, I think this is another opportunity. You know, I think what's happened with all the markets getting integrated, all the markets getting coupled, right? And guarantees of origin systems being put in place and so on. We are now in discussions, for example, with two of the large hyperscalers, right? I'm not going to mention any names, but they don't have any data centers in our markets, but they figured out they can do virtual PPAs, right? And if they want to match like 24/7 your demand supply, right? You want to get a different profile, right? You're not going to get it out of German.
We will need to address that over lunch. It would require, by the way, a lot of ethics regulations being changed.
Sorry, just to finish my argument. So I think setting up the system, setting up the guarantees of origin and coupling the markets, I think is very important for that to work. Thank you.
I think we need to finish. Yes. Give me just 1 second. Just as a sneak peek for our bankers, DFIs, what new financing instruments you expect to see, just as a sneak peek, in this region in the future? So more private equity?
Well, I think the days of grants for green transition in Western Balkans are over. So we should be adapting to the new world. CapEx grants won't be there as much as in the past anymore, but guarantees will be the instrument for the future. Guarantees to the risk projects and deliver lower cost finance investors.
I would vote for sustainable bonds, green bonds, sustainability-linked bonds, capital markets.
Perfect. Thank you for staying with us. Thank you for the insights.
Thank you. Thank you very much. If I'm never hired by the Central Bank of the Republic of Turkey for a moderator, it will be on you. Just so you know. Oh, well, c'est la vie. The AI will cover that.